Hello and welcome everyone to our webinar, Get Inspired, How to Succeed in Your STEM Career. My name is Gemma Modinos. I'm based at King's College London, and I'm also former chair of the Young Academy of Europe. And it is my pleasure to act as your chair today for this webinar. The purpose of this event is to showcase a set of videos that feature interviews with role models in STEM. These have been created as a deliverable of the project CALIPER. CALIPER was started by the Young Academy of Europe and it has been delivered in collaboration with the University of Cardiff and the Academia Europea Cardiff Hub. Our webinar aims to inspire and support female researchers by hearing the experiences of women who have made it in STEM. They will share valuable insights on issues like leadership, personal development, work-life balance, career support, mentoring, and more. We have a stellar lineup today with us. We have Professor Simonetta Manfredi, who is Professor of Equality and Diversity Management and Director of Research and Innovation at Oxford Brookes University in the UK. We also have Professor Karine van Doninck, Professor of Biology at the Free University of Brussels in Belgium. And we have Dr. Virginia Petre, who is a lecturer at the Faculty of Energy Engineering, the Politehnica University of Bucharest in Romania. Before we move on to the next part of this webinar, I'd like to remind you all that we have a Q&A box that you can see. We're all quite used nowadays to how these Zoom webinars work. So you have this Q&A box at the bottom where you can pop in questions anytime. And at the end, we have a dedicated Q&A section where I'll pose them to our speakers. But please, you don't have to wait until the end to pose your questions. You can pop them in there as they come to you. So to get us started, we will move on to a video that includes highlights from these role model interviews as part of the CALIPER project.
Previously, Professor in Materials Chemistry and Research Director of the Doninck Institute for Advanced Materials at the University of Groningen in the Netherlands. I have and have had also many roles and functions in the science policy domain, nationally and internationally. One of these roles was the chair of the Young Academy of Europe, and I was, as such, involved in the CALIPER project. Moreover, I was honored to be one of the women interviewed for the role model videos. The video clips you're about to watch celebrate the accomplishments of remarkable women in STEM. At the same time, they raise awareness of gender inequality issues within STEM disciplines. The interview videos serve as a valuable tool to inspire individuals pursuing STEM careers and promote open discussions on gender imbalances in the field. The women featured in the video come from a diverse range of backgrounds, representing various STEM domains and showcasing a wide array of experiences, expertise, and career paths. They have achieved significant success in their STEM careers, serving as inspirational figures. From pioneering research to achieving entrepreneurial success, each woman offers a unique perspective and extensive knowledge. Their accomplishments and commitments serve as a source of inspiration, encouraging current and future STEM enthusiasts to pursue their aspirations without limitations. Through their interviews, viewers gain insights into the challenges they've encountered, the milestones they've reached, and the valuable lessons they've learned. The stories have been very personal in some instances, for example, my own, sharing parts of my personal life I do not normally do, especially in a professional setting. At the same time, I've learned that it is the personal stories that people can relate to most and thereby work best as a source of inspiration. Their stories remind us that there's no one-size-fits-all journey in STEM, highlighting the importance of diversity of experience. These role models demonstrate that success in STEM is not determined by gender, but by talent, dedication, and a passion for making a difference. Their stories underscore the significance of inclusivity and gender equality in STEM, contributing to a more diverse and innovative future.
Ce qui me passionne dans les sciences, c'est que c'est un univers infini et qu'il faut toujours en apprendre plus, sans fin.
Saída em cima do Doninck segment, a minha terminal is, onde se me parece que met een alfabet tropo.
οι εμπειρίες δεν είναι ίδιες προφανώς, αλλά βάζω εγώ το μετρήσεις πολλές φορές. Αυτό που με έχει βοηθήσει εμένα και το συνιστώ είναι να αντιμετωπίσω τις καταστάσεις μόνες μας. Devo dire che ci sono dei cambiamenti epocali nella società e che le ragazze hanno tutto per diritti civili, per diritti della persona e che ci stiamo perdendo. Vorrei vedere più giovani donne impegnate e anche a rischiare per ottenere cose che stiamo perdendo. Mon message pour la prochaine génération scientifique, c'était d'abord d'être passionné. Passion, ce n'est pas masculine ou féminine. Okay, c'est un choix. Et c'est votre choix. En un estudio de la Universidad de dice que las niñas a los 6 años, las niñas, a los 6 años ya consideran que no están capacitadas como los niños para estudiar o para dedicarse a un tipo de disciplinas. Naturalmente estamos hablando de las disciplinas STEM, ciencia, tecnología y tecnología. Para le tinere absolventes, cred că ar trebui întotdeauna să le găsim. E atât de important să vorbești despre asta. Să spui, doamne, mă trebuie și asta. Care nu e important să zic. Belki olacak, belki olmayacak. Olmadığı zaman düşmeyeceksin. Yani onlar sınırlayacak. Si je devais donner un seul mot pour définir la science, ça serait grandir. Et toujours en anglais, serendipity, liberté, innovation, curiosité, l'avenir, exploration, créativité, connaissance, expérience, rigueur, agir, participation. La science, c'est pas la vie.
Wonderful. Thank you for playing that video. We're now going to move on to our opening talk, which will be delivered by Professor Simonetta Manfredi. Simonetta, please, you can take it away.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me, and great to see the video and so many really inspiring women. So let me start by saying I'm not a scientist by background, rather a social scientist. My area of expertise is equality and diversity management, but I've done a lot of research looking at the career of women in higher education, including the career of women in STEM. Now, one of the areas where I've focused recently is a career path that perhaps sometimes is not discussed enough, and that is how women in STEM can become founders of either spin-out or spin-off companies, which are created with the support of universities or startups companies. And I did some research recently focusing on this particular area, and I'd like to share with you some insights from that work. But before I do that, I really would like to say something about the importance of having more and more women in the STEM area. First of all, because obviously we do not want to miss out, society should not miss out on women's talent and indeed women's passion. But there is also another very important reason, is that women also brings their own experience, different perspective on life, and that reflects on the quality of the science and technology, in order to making sure that our science technology, through our science and technology, we achieve equality outcomes. Now, let me give you an example. My favorite example is that of the development of the car seat belt. The car seat belt was developed in the late 50s, early 60s. So long time ago, when the first prototype of the technology were developed. However, it took also almost 4 decades for a female engineer to actually refine the technology to make sure that the seatbelt, the 3 points seatbelts, would keep a pregnant woman safe in the car. No one had really thought about it properly before that point, because all the dummies, all the testing was done by thinking about the male body. So basically, it was a technology that was developed by men for men without thinking what happens if we have a pregnant woman in the car. So I think that is it's my favorite example. I think it's really a compelling one as to why you really need also that gender, you need to bring gender into innovation, into science, to get that perspective. And you could make the same case about other diversities like ethnicity. Recently, we saw, for example, with the pandemic, the oximeter wasn't a very important piece of equipment to test the level of oxygen in people. It was discovered that it didn't work so well with colored skins. So that, again, something that perhaps was developed by white people thinking about white people. So it's really important that this initiative, and I really congratulate you on this project, to get more and more. And now some of the speakers said, we really also need to reach out to the young women and show to them how exciting sciences are. So moving on, what I like to focus a little bit more is the entrepreneurial aspect that science, so where science can take you. So I did this piece of research together with some colleagues that was funded by the UK Science and Physical Sciences Research Council. And it really focused on what is unfortunately still the underrepresentation of women in the area of as founders of spin-out companies, or indeed startups. I mean, whether we look at the spin-outs, which are where the university maintain a share in it, or if we look at the startups that scientists set up independently from universities, whether the others still, we got some underrepresentation, and the issues are pretty much the same. So I'd like to share with you some of the issues, what we did as part of the research. We interviewed a number of women and men who had gone through the startup journey, which is an interesting career path that people can take, and share with you just a few key insights from that, which also apply probably more widely to women's career in STEM. I mean, the first one was looking at the motivation. Why would they do this? It's you start your career as a scientist, and then you bridge into another area, which is businesses. And the motivation was very clear. Women were very driven by the desire to take their science out of the lab or their technology and applying it for the benefit of society. That was really what was driving them, and what made them make this decision of, transitioning into an entrepreneurial, going into the entrepreneurial zone. What we also found that often these women were quite young, and that could be partly because perhaps women have started to move into this entrepreneurial zone more recently. That could be part of the reasons, but also what he did highlight, because we also did some focus groups with early career researchers. And again, we had, in the focus groups, we had both men and women, because we wanted to compare and contrast and see whether there was anything which stood out as being particular, impacting or affecting gender. The early career researchers, that we came across people, in fact, I have a colleague in my own university. She's a young woman. She's gone straight from PhD to become a founder of a spin-out company. She's a biologist. She's looking into something that could be groundbreaking, trying to combat the cancer, and looking at how breast cancer in particular, a certain type of very aggressive cancers could actually be treated. So there is quite a younger profile in that area. And another interesting finding that came from these interviews and focus groups was that transitioning into the entrepreneurial zone and setting up a company so that you can take the science, your science to market to benefit society, clearly is very demanding, a very demanding role, no question about that. So one would think, okay, so how is that square with work-life balance? And often women have childcare responsibilities. It is still a fact, although there is much more sharing between men and women of caring and family responsibilities, nonetheless, it's still a fact that women tend to have more of a bigger share of these responsibilities. But interesting enough, some of these women have actually chosen to do this. They found it. They're becoming founders of a spin-out company, startup company, gave them much more flexibility and autonomy. So they decided, they thought that the academic careers were a little bit too rigid, too demanding. So although, yes, becoming an entrepreneur was demanding, but they had much more control. We also spoke to some women who then decided to set up their own startups. They actually left academia. And the reason why they left academia was precisely because of the lack of flexibility, the lack of work-life balance policies to support them at crucial times of their life when they were having children. So that was it was an interesting finding. And in terms of the key barriers that women have experienced in this area when they make the transition into the entrepreneurial, the main key barrier was that of seeking investments. And if you look, whatever statistics you look, whether you look at statistics, I'm based in the UK, but whether you look at international statistics, you will see that most of the investments go to companies, startups companies, spin-out companies, which are funded by men teams. A little bit more goes to mixed teams, mixed gender teams, and those teams which are women only are the one who gets less. And when we say less, we're talking about much less. We're talking about probably between 80 and 90%, depending what stats you look at, of this funding goes to men's only teams. In the UK, the representation of women as spin-out founders has improved a bit since we started working in this area, which is back in 2019. We found that only 13% of these companies had at least one woman founder. Now we looked at the data again, and we see that has gone up, is 18%, which is much better. Nationally, then some university actually has done very well, but still, is not fantastic. So I just wanted to, I know I don't want to take too much time. How am I doing for time? I'm looking at the chair. Is that okay? I just want to come up with a final point. So the area where they found the main barriers were, first of all, there seems to be stereotypes. In some cases, we heard some very funny stories about women, what a scientist looks like. So there are these stereotypes in people's mind. And I remember in particular the story from a woman, a physicist who has set up her own company. And she said how once she had some journalists coming to film their company, her at work, and she had some lipstick on, she had her hair was loose, and so they asked her, could you please put your, pull up your hair, wipe your lipstick, put a pair of goggles on. So it was, again, they asked her to change her appearance in probably what was in their mind, what a female scientist needs to look like. So these are very silly things. I mean, she laughed about it, but on the other hand, they can be quite serious, because especially if we want to engage young women and encourage them to think about the sciences career in sciences and engineering, if the image of a female engineer, a scientist, is one that is not cool, we are all being teenagers and we can be influenced by peer pressure and silly things, that might put them off. And not to mention that it's simply silly having this kind of stereotypes. And sometimes, this was about appearance, but some could be more serious in terms of thinking, oh, well, if you succeeded, it must meant that perhaps you had a relationship with some men in power, and so that was even a serious type and undermining type of stereotypes. The other area, and this is the last one that I want to mention, was the managing the securing investments for the companies, and that was a real challenge. So because the investment community is very much male dominated. So as one of the women that we interviewed put it, you then have a situation there where men are pitching to men. So you immediately, they don't expect you, and there is some very interesting research which also shows how in this situation sometimes men and women are asked different type of questions. The double standards apply very much in women's career, no matter what it is, whether it's about pitching for investments for a company, whether it is through careers or promotions, these double standards where women are always judged much more in a much more harsh way than men. You know, where men are promising, women are maybe not. She hasn't got particularly good developed careers yet. It's too soon. It's premature. While instead, in the case of a man, the assessment is more favorable. But so this can be an issue. And what we have done, having said, I mean, what I really like very much when I do research, I want to use my findings, if I can, to make a small difference, going back to this idea of making a difference. And so what we did was to team up with female investors. They too have their own challenges in operating in a very male-dominated environment, like the environment of the sciences can be, depending on the disciplines, not all disciplines. So we came together and thought, okay, can we resolve this? Can we actually work together and trying to find some solutions and making, we all have the same challenge in making that more women wants to be represented in investment. We need more women in the investment community, but we also need more women scientists as founder of spin out and startups company. So we came together on a campaign, which is called Women Backing Women. And we're doing a number of initiatives to, as I say, work together in terms of helping women to find in a friendly way what will be how they can secure more investments, and also having more women investors who are much more aware also of the type of products and sciences and technology and how this can be to go back to what I said at the beginning, ensuring that also through our science, technology, innovation, we can achieve some more gender equality in our society. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Simonetta, for all these insights. You raised really important points in there. Also, we are already having some really good questions in the Q&A. So as I said, we will keep them for the Q&A section at the end, but please keep them coming. These are all really good. For now, we're going to move on to the contribution of Professor Karine van Doninck, please, if you would like to turn on your screen.
Yes, I will put my camera, start here. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Karine van Doninck. I'm a full professor at Université Libre de Bruxelles in Belgium, Brussels. And I'm very honored to be here. I've participated to CALIPER since a long time. And I'm also in the gender and equality of our university. So as a woman, first of all, why have I chosen STEM and science and biology in particular? First of all, because I have always been interested by science, but also what I've realized, and maybe we don't realize this enough, but this is one of the only positions or jobs, I could say, in academia, is that you have this free thinking possibility. And I think women as men really like this. Not everybody, but I don't think there would be a difference between women or men in the fact that we do like this free thinking process. So it's, I think, a wonderful job, because in science you have this possibility to constantly go further in the frontiers of the thinking. You should be innovative. So you constantly create further, you think further, and you get this possibility. So I think this is a very important one to put forward. And so I think sometimes what I hear from young ladies when I discuss with them, maybe more than with young boys, is what is the content of my job every day? And it's true that I don't have a fixed job or a fixed schedule, which is a very important one. Somehow I have the flexibility to think, but it means I'm teaching, I'm doing research, I am discussing in this type of panels, I'm giving conferences. So indeed, my job is never from 9 to 5 and never fixed, but somehow it's also flexible. I am a woman, but also a mother of 4 children. And so I have the flexibility to also be there if my children need me. But of course, I'm sometimes not there because I'm abroad, but they see I do this with passion. I do this science with passion. I really love my job, the teaching to the young ones, the research I'm doing. So I talk a lot with them about what I'm doing. And I really see that my kids are very proud by the fact that they see me passionate in my job. So it's somehow very rewarding as a mother to see that your children are proud of you, and that whenever I give a conference in Belgium, they would even participate because they are just proud. So somehow I think we need to emphasize much more the beauty of this job, the beauty of the job in academia, in the field of science. Is it exact science? Is human science? It's just such a beautiful job because through teaching, you can share your know-how with the other one. And through research, you can innovate and create and go much further in this thinking process and in discovering new aspects. And if we see the challenges on Earth nowadays, we need innovative people. And for me, it doesn't matter. I think gender is not a point in all this. It's really about this passion and not being afraid to do it. I know there are a few difficulties in this academic career path, which I think a lot of people, especially in Europe and in the European universities, but also abroad, are working on, is this whole moment of uncertainty from a PhD to a postdoc to a professor, where there is a certain period of uncertainty in the career path because you're depending on projects, on grants, and you don't have immediately a fixed position. But I can tell you nowadays that even in private companies, even if you get a fixed position, it doesn't mean that you cannot be fired or that this is permanent. So I still think the first aim to do a job is that you like your job. You are spending more than 40 hours a week on your job. So it's really important to get that, to do what you like. But I think, and we have to work on it, we have to work on possibilities to give the woman the opportunity to be in an somehow uncertain situation where they have grants for a few years while raising kids, while wanting to establish a family. And I think Europe has come up, and our universities, with more and more regulations in this that are very important. I think there is more and more families who also share childcare as another important aspect in family setting. And so there is a very positive evolution on this. I think CALIPER was also there exactly to give tools and to give possibilities in this. So I really encourage everyone, and especially these young women, to really aim for a career in STEM. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Karine. That was very interesting and insightful as well, with the different touching on different topics. So we're going to move on now to the last contribution before we go to the Q&A by Dr. Virginia Petre. Please, Virginia.
Okay, so good afternoon to everyone. Thank you for the introduction. So just to retake it, my name is Virginia Petre, and I'm a lecturer at the Faculty of Energy Engineering within the Université Politehnica of Bucharest. It's been more than 10 years already in the university. My story is kind of an interesting story because it started a long time ago that I decided to do science and not economics or I don't know arts or something else. And when I decided to do this, everybody was a little bit, let's say, not very encouraging, because it's a boy field. But I didn't give up, and I started studying energy. I liked it very much. In my studies, my second year of university, I left for France to start my second faculty of science. So I've been traveling between Romania and France for the past 10 years, let's say, doing research. And when I was in my PhD studies, my doctoral studies, I didn't actually find myself very comfortable to work in private, let's say in an office. And I discovered teaching when I was doing my doctoral studies. And I discovered this new life for me, and I decided to do teaching and research. And since then, this is what I am doing, actually. I'm within the faculty. I'm teaching exactly what I wanted to teach. That means physics, thermodynamics. It was not easy. I'm not going to say it was easy, because it was not easy, because we were not too many girls to choose science. For example, in my first year of study, we were 3 girls among 30 boys. In France, it was actually the same. We were, I think, 14 girls among 100 boys for the entire study year. It was not very easy. It's true, but I like it too much, and I decided not to give up. And when I started teaching, my surprise was that with every year passing along, in class, I had more and more girls. And now, today, I have more than half of the class girls. And so I decided to start and share my experience and encourage young girls to pursue their dreams, to do science, because it's not just for men, and it's not difficult. It's not something you should give up just because you're a woman. For the past 2 years, I had several interventions, national and international, for let's say, gender equality in STEM, and of course also, which I find it very, very, very important, how to manage a research career being a mom, because I'm a mom of 2 little kids, and it was not easy to get back to research and to education from my maternity leave. So I started 2 years ago doing a lot of interventions and talking a lot about women in science and being a mom in science and doing research and education. And I find it very important to raise awareness about this subject. My last intervention was this year in Madrid on a project. I don't know if you know about it, ELISA project. We talked a lot about the problems that we have when coming back from maternity leave. We talk a lot about the fact that if you want to fight the gender biases, you need to start early when the kids are small, because usually we raise kids as boys and girls. We teach boys to play with cars, and we teach girls to play with baby dolls, or we dress boys in blue and we dress girls in pink. And then when we get today, like in the present, we expect not to have a gender difference between them in different aspects of life today, STEM, for example. So I've been doing a lot of interventions of this kind, and this is why I'm very glad to be able to participate today in this webinar, because I am actually, even in school right now, encouraging young girls to study science, because I am studying science, I am doing research. I am actually just finishing my postdoctoral studies this week in a field which is not easy and not very known in Romania, for example. And it's been very difficult to raise awareness of this subject also. And sometimes I feel like I'm fighting alone, but I'm not. And this project shows me that I'm not actually alone in this STEM field. Well, I am trying to do my best to talk to the girls and to the young girls who are trying to do research, but they are afraid of different aspects. Especially they are getting afraid of this, I don't know how to call it, this way of how others will look at them, because sometimes you have the impression that you have to be a little bit boyish to be in the STEM field. Something that I've been also through when I was in my studies. I was also always dressed like a boy when I was in my university studies, because I had the impression that I had to be like a boy to show that I am actually fit for the STEM field, for this kind of study, science, which I actually abandoned during the past 10 years, because I actually understood that this is not a gender space. This is about our brain, and it's actually the same, even though we are boys or even if we are girls. And this is how today I got to be myself, and not to lose my femininity when I am doing science. And this is why I'm actually continuing pursuing science, because I like it. And I have some of the lessons I learned during the years, during my, I'm not gonna call it struggling, I'm gonna call it experience. Never give up, but never give up. Just push trying to be yourself, and you don't have to prove necessarily that because you're a girl, you're just better than some others, but just don't ever give up your dreams. Just do science if you like science. And of course, another point that I am teaching also every time when I start a class is that when you work with pleasure, when you love what you work, it's not called work, it's called living. So this is what I'm doing. I am doing science, I am a teacher, I am a researcher, and I love what I do. So therefore I'm not working, I'm just enjoying life. So this is me in a few minutes. Thank you very much. I'm waiting for the questions if we have any. I will be very glad to answer questions. Thank you
so much, Virginia. That was so inspirational. And what a great way to get us into the Q&A section. So now we're going to have all the speakers available. Please keep putting questions into the Q&A. For now, we're going to have get started with a few ones that we have. So the first question was actually typed while Simonetta was speaking, but I'd encourage the other panelists also to chip in. The question was, what's your opinion on the gender pay gap within the STEM sector? So Simonetta, I believe that was for you, but anyone else who would like to chip in, most welcome.
Shall I start and then, okay, so there is a gender pay gap in the higher education and in many other industries as well. I think one part of the issue with the gender pay gap, whether it's higher education, STEM, or other industries, is the fact that, and I've seen that happening also, being involved in appointment panels. Men are much better asking for more money, and women are not normally, they're very pleased if you offer them the job, but they don't necessarily engage into negotiation about salary like the men do, and they are quite effective at doing it. So this is, and I have to say, I have learned throughout my career not just to accept the salary that they offer me, but to discuss it. The worst that can happen is that they say no, so it's take it or leave it. But I have, in some situation, realized that actually they are prepared to discuss it. So I think there is certainly, I don't know why, what it is. And also that it's interesting, there is some research which shows also when it comes to apply for grants, women ask for less money than men. So there is something to do with women and money. I'm not sure what, but in terms of the gender pay gap, often is that that very beginning, and then it piles up because you start on a lower and you're always on sort of catching up. So I don't want to put in necessarily all on the women, because also the responsibility of the institutions. I mean, the institution, for example, in my university, we do a regular gender audit pay gap to see how things are. And if that audit picks up that there are differences, then we look at why is it that there are these differences, what can be done. And I think it's very important. I don't want to take the kind of gender deficit model, which is all at the fault of the women, that they're not asking for more money. But it's also very important that the institutions are aware of these differences. Another area which could cause a gender pay gap within institutions, women tend to be a little bit less mobile in terms of changing institutions because they've got families, they want to stay in the same institution. And then if you progress your career in the same institution, you have less opportunities to negotiate a higher salary that you would have if you move to a different institution. Again, this is a structural issue that the institutions should be doing something about it to make sure that this to mitigate the gender pay gap and to work towards elimination of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to add something briefly to that? Otherwise, we'll move on. I
can just say that indeed, I have also been negotiating, and in the end, maybe it's true that it's known that men often negotiate more than women. So it's something I think that universities and companies and everyone should be aware of. And so, in fact, there should just be an equality, that we should just go for an equality so that negotiation is not even anymore the rule, and that it's just equality in general. So I think this is just something that even at European level could be managed, that there is just for the same job an equal payment.
If I may chip into this quickly, the research shows that indeed women are less likely to negotiate if it's not clear in the job advert that negotiation is a possibility, whereas a man, the evidence shows they will negotiate regardless. So as you're saying, Karine, to take into account equality, now that we have this software that can generate, adverts for jobs that are not putting off underrepresented groups, this is also something to take into account to make sure, it's an evidence-based job advert that does not get already rid of some groups just by the way it's phrased. Excellent, thank you. So the next question was from Sarah Charles, and it says, would it be possible to hear about working across different areas, such as combining research, an academic career, and entrepreneurship? This was also during Simonetta's talk.
I'm happy to offer some thoughts. So the research that we did looking at the women who had founded the spin-out company, so they went into entrepreneurship. Again, it shows that going back to institution, if this is something that institution value, and this, at least there seems to be doing so, at least in the UK, they really need to also enabling people to do this. So what is very important is to have a mechanism which enable the combining these initiatives rather than having to do everything. So we came across a situation where women who had founded a spin-out company, they had to do the work for the spin-out company over and above their academic work. And that was simply too much. And some saying that they were grateful to their boss that was quite willing to turn a blind eye if one day they were not in the lab because they had to do some work on the spin out. But that doesn't work. That is not a sustainable model. And that could put a lot of people off. So it's two things that we recommended as a result of our study was, first of all, there needs to be a clear distinction of work, clear time. So, for example, one good model would be when people become a startup or a spin out, to be seconded to the company for 1-2 days a week, and then for the rest of the week they do their academic job. So to have a clear period of time dedicated to that activity, not expecting them to do everything. Because this is a bit of a problem in academia, you know, the time, there seems to be sometimes expectation that people work all sorts of hours. That number one. Number two, also institution needs to be very clear how they value these activities and how these activities are taken into account in the promotion processes. So it's really important that there is clarity in our institution and there are spaces for people to do this. To make sure that it doesn't become something that then it's unsustainable and it becomes also more difficult for women to do, because if there are other things, other responsibilities in their life.
Great, thank you. I don't know if anyone else has a comment on this. Otherwise, we will move on. So thank you for that question. The next one is, what's your advice for women who are interested in a career in STEM, but are put off by the low pay at entry level? Does it get better as you move up the ranks? I'm assuming this is low pay as opposed to a job in industry. Yes, Virginia?
I can talk a little bit about this because it is actually a problem that we are encountering right now in the university. So we have less and less students, let's say, not just girls or boys, who are not pursuing doctoral studies, for example, to reach the point of being a teaching assistant in the university and doing research, because they are a little bit afraid of this gap between the industry and the university financial gap. I actually went through this, and it was not an easy decision, because when you're young, you want money. And let's face it, the generation right now, the young girls and boys right now, that they are a little bit different from us. We actually, we as generation, we see life as a long road, and we rather be good later than right now. Well, young generation right now, they rather be otherwise. They rather be good right now, and they don't really think about what's going to happen in 10 years. So they want a lot of money right now. From the start, as soon as possible, just to enjoy life. So it is a tricky problem to solve. I think we should, in general, tell them that things are not like this all the time. I mean, I know it's a low pay at the beginning, but it's not staying like this. I mean, I have been a little bit difficult at the beginning, but after, I was very comfortable with what I made, and let's face it, I'm not complaining. I'm doing what I love, and I am very good with what I do and what I get. And what I want to say is that we shouldn't get demotivated by this aspect, because it's not always all about money or about time that we want right now. I know it's a generation difference it's in mentality, but I think if you love what you do and if you want to do this, you just need to try. You just need to go forward and then decide if you can do it or not. Thank you.
Virginia, are there other thoughts on this? Okay.
I can just add that but the low pay compared to industry is really depending, because I see that in young spin-off, I also have a spin-off out of my lab, and we are preparing a second spin-off. And in these young spin-offs or in many other industries, it's not paid better than academic. In some it does, but I think academia is not a badly paid job in the sense that it's a well-paid job, and it moves up. It moves up, and the rules are the same for everybody. When you get promotion, you do move up, and there is no difference. So I think, and again, I think we should remember that the beauty also of the job is the flexibility, the free thinking. And I have never had anyone who told me you have to do this or this or this. It's like you really go for your innovative ideas and you move forward. And it's a really nice environment to have this possibility of free thinking, which is not in, as I was emphasizing, not in many jobs. So I think it's a well-paid job, but there is still a difference I think between countries. And again, this is something that should be done at European level, is to more equalize this in different countries, because I think Belgium is a good one, is a good example of being well-paid. And I'm sure there are other countries where it's still very low. So I think it's also a difference between countries, and that should be worked on really at European political level.
Absolutely. Very good points. So the next question is by Louise Edwards. Do you think change in STEM is continuing to accelerate, or have we reached a plateau? What is the biggest challenge we have to solve? And this is an important one, right? So there's definitely been progress, but it's not equal. That is obvious. It's not equal. So what do you think? Have we reached a plateau? Are we continuing to accelerate? And what do you think is the biggest challenge? Maybe Karine can start us.
Yeah, I can start. So we've certainly not reached a plateau. I saw the number recently by our gender group and CALIPER inside ULB. So clearly we are not there. And especially in political sciences, in engineering, I was surprised how few women were at the highest academic level. So it was less than 8%, reaching full professor, while there are many more girls starting as students. So we still have an issue there. So I think universities, European regulations really need to be put in place to increase this. And again, I think there are several ways to look at. There is the help with childcare. There is the fact of obliging to go abroad, which is much more difficult when you have a family. While in an academic career, it's expected that you do at least a postdoc abroad, which makes it sometimes more difficult for women with children or in general families. So we could think about ways to change this. There is this insecure period of postdoc, which becomes longer and longer because of the huge competition. So we are thinking nowadays how to evaluate a scientist, because nowadays it's strongly evaluated on publications only, and which is not always a good criteria, especially when you had maternity leave for a long time. You really have a gap sometimes in your publication record. And then this is not taking into account. And then women have also tendency, and today is a beautiful example, to be willing to share knowledge. So all their participations to interventions like today, to conferences, are often not much appreciated in a CV. And so there are different ways to evaluate the CV of a person. And I think we really need to work on that, on when we evaluate to get an academic person into academia. Science or publication is one aspect of the whole work, but there is the way we are teaching, the way we are sharing knowledge, the way we are contributing to the community. And I think all these have to be evaluated. And maybe some women will excel if we would consider all these aspects and not only publications. And I think we need to work on this, on these guidelines when you hire somebody, is to look at the more full package. And I think it's the same in industry. Industry that are more inclusive, more diverse, have shown to work better in the end. And so I think in general, we should really embrace this inclusivity and diversity, because I think in the long term, it's much more positive for any company, any university, anything.
Thank you, Karine. And briefly, Virginia, you have your hand up.
Thank you. So I do agree with Karine with everything she said. Indeed, I cannot say that we actually reached the plateau in when we are talking about STEM, because I would rather say that we have still a long way to reach the plateau. For example, in my university, we are fighting this gender gap, and we are right now in the present time, we are at 40% girls among all the students that we have, and we are very proud about it. And I can see it every day in class, but not all of them are having the courage to reach an academia job. So even though we have a lot of women who are full professors, and even in my university we are a lot of women who are teaching and doing research, we still have some domains in science that are not doing as best as us. Let's say energy, it's okay, but we still have some major domains that are not as good as the others, because young girls still they are still afraid of pursuing an academic job. In terms of women in science after maternity leave, for example, it's still very difficult. I remember I had a young girl. She's a mom of a little boy, and she was too scared to start her PhD and to become a teacher, because she wanted very much to become a teacher, because she was afraid she's not going to publish enough papers to actually permit her to finish her PhD and to actually reach a teaching assistant post. So she actually decided not to. So she's not doing it. She decided to stay at home and then to start working on in a company. So there are some major problems that still need to be attended for women, because yes, you have a gap of time when you are staying home in your maternity leave. Then you have the problem of how you do your job having kids. It's not the same as a man. Then you have problems when you come back to the university and to actually trying to gain what you lost for the time staying home. And it's not easy, and these problems are not yet touched by every country. For example, in Europe, I mean, for example, Germany, they have in universities super good programs for the moms when they come back, but other countries not too many. Even in Romania, we have some programs encouraging us to get back to work, but they are not as good as, for example, in Germany. So it's not as easy for us women to go back to work after maternity leave. So no, I think we are not reaching a plateau. We still have to work on these kind of problems and to actually trying to make them equal, at least at European level, as Karine said.
Thank you. Thank you, Virginia. So there was I would like us to finish on time, but there is a last question about for a few panelists that mentioned having a family. How has it been juggling a demanding career with young children? And the two of you have just really touched on that. So I do want us to finish on time, but if you could say the one tip, the one thing that really helped you combine, what would that be? Karine, please.
Me? Sorry. Yeah, it's again flexibility. The fact that, don't forget, this is a job where you're flexible. So if they call me now at school that I have to get my kids because she's sick, there is somehow a certain flexibility in this. So this has helped a lot. We forget that academia, of course, when you're teaching and so on, you can't leave right away. But there is much more flexibility, I think, and understanding towards this than in private companies, because my husband is in a private company and he's much less flexible towards the kids than I am. And then, of course, like I said, if you share your passion with your kids are understanding you. So when you're absent or not always there, and they see that it's because you do something passionate, they understand. And somehow they even get very quickly independent. It's the case of my kids, where they really, really take things in hand, because they say, we help mom because of this. But of course, at a young age, I have to admit, I took a fille au pair at home for 1 or 2 years to help when they were very young, because it's still, then they can't be independent.
Thank you. So the flexibility is an advantage. Very quickly, Virginia, you wanted to say something?
Yes, so I would have to agree with Karine. It's the flexibility, the family, the colleagues that can help you a lot when you have kids. I'm in the situation when I have 2 kids, a little one, 2 years and a half, and the other one is 3 months old. And the major help that I had that actually helped me, and it was flexibility. It was my colleagues from my work, my family, and having a nanny when they are young like this. But I also have to agree with Karine on the point of passionate. If you're passionate about what you're doing, you're not actually feeling that it's hard to do it. So me, I went back very, very fast after my first child, and now I'm gonna start in a few months now. And even if everybody is telling me that it's going to be incredible difficult, I'm not gonna feel it, because I have all this support with me, this flexibility, this passion. I have my nanny, my family, and my colleagues helping me. So when you do what you love, it's not hard.
Thank you, Virginia.
Thank you.
Simonetta, any final remark before we close?
Very quickly, I'm a single mom. My son is grown up now, but one of the things I agree with, most of the things have already been said, but also the flexibility from a point of view of the institution. It's really important the institution have good policies to support women. As a single mom, at one point I went part-time, and then I was able to go back full-time. So having these opportunities and helping women at critical points in their career, and men for that matter, I think it's really very, very important.
Thank you, Simonetta. I really appreciate you've brought the institutional and structural issues into the conversation today. So this is the end of our webinar. Thank you so much to everyone that joined us live. Thank you very much to our excellent speakers. Thank you to the Cardiff University for organizing this and hosting it. I believe the recording will be available so people can watch in their own time. Thank you to the attendees for their wonderful questions. And this is all for us today. Thank you.